One huge raid has turned a football celebration into a global risk story. Mexico is still a World Cup host, but the conversation just changed. Security, perception, and whether FIFA can trust the path ahead are all now on the table. Here is what actually happened and what it means. The hosts of the upcoming World Cup. Let's start with the foundation. The 2026 FIFA World Cup runs from June 11th to July 19th, 2026, and it is hosted across 3 countries, the United States, Canada, and Mexico. 16 cities in total, the largest World Cup ever staged. Mexico is set to host 13 World Cup matches across 3 cities, Mexico City, Monterrey, and Guadalajara. Estadio Azteca in Mexico City anchors the whole thing, 5 matches in total, including the tournament's opening fixture. That opener is Mexico versus South Africa, the match that kicks off the entire 2026 World Cup. The stadium that hosted 2 previous World Cups, the stadium where Maradona scored the Hand of God, opens the biggest tournament in football history. From there, Guadalajara hosts multiple group stage games, including Mexico versus South Korea, a fixture FIFA has already flagged as one of the highest demand tickets in the tournament. Colombia are also set to play a group match in Guadalajara. Monterrey rounds out the Mexican slate with additional group stage games, including South Africa versus South Korea. This was the plan. 13 matches, 3 iconic venues, and Mexico positioned as one of the symbolic pillars of the whole event. That is what was sitting on the table when this week's news broke. Mexico. Drug trade history and existing security concerns. Security concerns around Mexico's hosting role did not start this week. They have been part of the background conversation since the bid was awarded, and to understand why, you need a short piece of context. Mexico's modern cartel conflict escalated sharply after 2006, when the federal government launched an intensified anti-cartel military campaign. What followed was not the elimination of organized crime, it was fragmentation. Existing power structures broke apart, smaller and more aggressive groups filled the gaps, and the violence that resulted reshaped entire regions of the country. The numbers reflect that. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, Mexico recorded more than 463,000 homicides between 2006 and the early 2000s, a figure that represents one of the most sustained organized crime death tolls anywhere in the world during that period. Into that environment, over roughly a decade, rose the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. The organization built its reach through territorial aggression, extreme violence against rivals and government forces alike, and a significant role in moving fentanyl, methamphetamine, and cocaine across the US border. By the time the 2026 hosting rights were awarded, CJNG was operating out of Jalisco, the same state as Guadalajara, one of Mexico's 3 World Cup host cities. That connection was never lost on people watching closely. And this week, AP reporting made it concrete. Residents and business owners in Jalisco and Puerto Vallarta were explicitly saying that what happened could make tourists think twice about coming. People tied directly to the local economy in a World Cup host region, raising out loud the question of whether visitors would still feel safe. That is not hysteria. That is the reality of what one violent weekend can do to tourism confidence, sponsor perception, and media narrative, even before FIFA says a single word. El Mencho and the bounty. Now let's talk about the man at the center of all this. Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, known as El Mencho, was the founder and leader of the Jalisco Cartel. Under his command, the organization became one of the most powerful trafficking networks in the Western Hemisphere, and he had spent years at the top of US most wanted lists. The reward attached to his capture increased from $10 million to up to $15 million in December 2024, with the DEA publicly urging anyone with news to come forward. Reuters reported that the Trump administration was actively pressuring Mexico to escalate its anti-cartel operations in preparation for the World Cup. That pressure is part of why the pursuit of El Mencho intensified in the months leading into this week. So what happened? Sunday, February 22nd, 2026. Mexican security forces launched a major operation in Tapalpa, in the state of Jalisco. Intelligence had traced a lead connected to one of El Mencho's personal relationships, and that lead pointed to a compound location that US intelligence support helped identify, though Mexican officials were the boots on the ground. The raid ended in a firefight. Reports describe El Mencho as wounded during the operation and dying while being flown by air transfer in the aftermath. Mexican authorities made a formal public statement on Monday, February 24th, confirming his death. The leader of one of the world's most powerful drug trafficking organizations was killed in a military operation in Jalisco, the Mexican state that is home to Guadalajara, a confirmed 2026 World Cup host city. The operation itself took about 24 hours to become international news. The consequences took considerably less time: the aftermath. After his death, the Jalisco cartel retaliated with roadblocks, arson attacks, torched buses, burned stores, and hits on government installations. This happened across multiple states. The civilian impact was immediate. Flights in the region were cancelled or severely disrupted. Tourists in Guadalajara and Puerto Vallarta found themselves navigating closed routes, service disruptions, and streets that looked nothing like the destination they had booked. And then came the detail that connected this directly to football. A P reported that 4 high-profile domestic football matches in Mexico were postponed in the aftermath of the violence. Guadalajara, the city where Mexico versus South Korea was supposed to be one of the most in-demand tickets of the entire 2026 tournament. The city AP confirms is scheduled to host 4 World Cup games, was the center of that retaliation map. This is the shift. For years, cartel violence existed as background context in the World Cup conversation. This week it interrupted sport directly. The issue stopped being something planners could manage quietly and became something a global audience watched unfold on their screens in real time. The way forward: Mexico has already deployed 2,000 additional troops to Jalisco in response to the violence. Authorities are simultaneously managing real security operations and fighting a secondary battle against fake viral content spreading faster than verified reporting. The questions FIFA and tournament organizers will now be judged against are practical ones. Can Mexico stabilize its host cities? Can transport corridors, airports, stadium perimeters, and fan zones be credibly secured? Can authorities demonstrate control of both the streets and the information environment? This is not yet a hosting removal story, it is a trust story. Mexico has time to answer those questions before June 2026. But the margin for further incidents has narrowed, and the world is now paying attention in a way it was not 7 days ago. Mexico's World Cup place is not decided by one headline. It is decided by what comes next: stability, security, and whether FIFA sees a country in control or a country in crisis. Drop your take in the comments. Will they host the World Cup in June? Will this be a successful World Cup? Give a like, subscribe, and watch the next video on your screen. See you there.
Look, I'll be honest, we're swamped. The World Cup hype is real and Goal90 shop is officially at capacity. If you ordered this week, please bear with us for a 2-week processing delay. It's a good problem to have, but we are working around the clock to get your gear out. Thank you for your massive support. Look, I'll be honest, we're swamped. The World Cup hype is real and Goal90 shop is officially at capacity. If you ordered this week, please bear with us for a 2-week processing delay. It's a good problem to have, but we are working around the clock to get your gear out. Thank you for your massive support. Look, I'll be honest, we're swamped. The World Cup hype is real and Goal90 shop is officially at capacity. If you ordered this week, please bear with us for a 2-week processing delay. It's a good problem to have, but we are working around the clock to get your gear out. Thank you for your massive support.